Hello, Joy Brooks with Email and Coffee. What if you needed to make warm water in order to take a shower? Or schedule the best time to get on the internet? What if cooking meant you had to fire up the wood stove? Salma Burney and her husband live off-grid on 60 acres of land in New Brunswick, Canada. Their lives are not too different than ours. They live in the moment and are very intentional. And now, Salma Burney. Hey everyone, Joy Brooks with Email and Coffee. I'm talking today with Salma Burney, who's from our sister, Canada. She's got an interesting story to tell, but I'll let her tell us. So go ahead, Salma.
So thank you. Yes, so I am in the east coast of Canada, New Brunswick. And like Joy says, I do have an interesting background because I live 100% off the grid. So off grid to me, everyone's off grid is a little bit different, but our 100% off grid is that I am not tied to the power system. We produce our own power. So we have 9 solar panels, a 60-foot wind turbine that combined make the power to power my house, to power the internet that is working right now, to power my computer, power our lights, all of that in our house. And for heat, we use a wood stove. And the wood stove is located in the basement of our house, and we have an off-grid system to take the heat from the basement and push it up into the house. And the same for the summertime. It's cold in the basement, and we have a system to push the cold up. So we have air conditioning.
All those concepts are interesting. So you have solar panels and a wind turbine.
Yes.
And in the winter, because you're in Canada and you get snow, are there iffy times?
Well, so most houses that think of solar panels, they think, oh, I'm going to put it on the roof. We don't have our panels on the roof. My husband actually put them on a little bit of a slope, south facing, in front of our house. So they're in 3x3s, so rows 3x3, and they actually can be angled up or down because in the winter time, your sun is a little bit it's shorter. So we put it at a 40% grade. And that's what we do for our area. And in the summertime, they can go flat to a 20% because there's much more sun. And yes, in the winter we get snow, but we have a solution for that. We actually take our squeegee that you use on a car, and I go out with my snow boots and squeegee off the snow. And it's quite interesting to actually see the difference of how much volts are coming in when it's covered with snow, and then you take it off and you're like, oh look, we're full. We have a lot of, and even in the summer, even when we've had times where it's been very cold, but it's sunny, we actually still get full power, and I'm able then to plug in my hot water tank. Because a lot of people don't think about it, but your hot water tank is always consuming energy to keep that hot water on demand. So we don't have a hot water on demand here. We use the sun, and sometimes if we need it on a pinch, we'll use our generator and connect it for our hot water tank.
So, what the kitchen and the bathrooms are questions. So, how you cook? Are you cooking with gas?
I actually cook on a propane stove. I do it twofold. So the way I'm a little bit of efficiency here. So in the winter time, I will cook. I cook a lot of Indian curries. So and vegetarian curries. So I cook that on the propane stove, and downstairs on the wood stove, I will take my cast iron pot that I have with the rice and put it on top of the wood stove. Because for me, I like to have everything that would do at least two uses. Because my wood stove is heating up our house, it could also heat up my rice. So in the winter time, and at the same time too, the wood stove where it has a threefold because it will cook my rice or anything I put on top of it. And in the winter, I actually hang all of my wet laundry around it, and then it is actually my dryer in the winter. In the summertime, I actually take my propane stove, which is it's kind of like a portable one, and I put it outside on my deck and I'll cook the curry there, and I use my barbecue as an oven, and I put my cast iron pot in there and cook the rice there.
It works. That works.
Yep.
I had a wood stove for many years, and people living in New York, where people don't know, they come over to my house and they, say, "Oh, I'd say, would you like a cup of coffee?" And they'd say, "Yeah." And I would go over to the wood stove, and they would be like, "What are you doing?" I'm like, "I'm making coffee." And they were amazed. Or they'd come over and they'd see, they go, "Oh, that's cook. What are you cooking? Stew." Oh, and then they'd look at the wood stove, and it would be on the wood stove. So, yeah, those wood stoves are incredible.
Oh yeah,
They're incredible. They're wonderful.
definitely.
Obviously, you learn a different science, because what's the temperature? You just, you learn the four corners of your wood stove where it's less hot than the middle of the wood stove. Or, if you're able to, you don't fire it up, or you do fire it up, whatever. You know what I'm saying? So yeah, wood stoves are pretty cool. When you say, "Hey, honey, I'm going to be taking a shower," how much prep does that mean?
Well, it's actually not saying, "Honey, I'm going to take a shower." It's, "Oh, it's a sunny day. I want to plug in the hot water tank because I need a shower." So I needed a shower. It was yesterday, and I knew it wasn't sunny. And so we planned it. I said, "Okay, he said, I'll put on the generator. And when the hot water tank's done, because we can hear the hot water tank, you can hear it gurgling when it's heating up. And when it's stopped, it's quiet." So we're like, "Okay, it's quiet. I can unplug it and I can stop the generator." On other days, when the sun is really good and I'm like, "Oh, sun's out, it's good. Okay, I'm going to plug in my hot water tank. In about 2 hours, I have hot water, and then I'll remember to either take my shower then or later in the day." Now, for me, I have, thick hair. So if I take it too late in the night, then I don't have a blow dryer. But my blow dryer in the winter, this is quite funny, is where a wood stove is. Imagine the floor, and the floor has registers. I sit on the register, put my head back, and dry my hair, because underneath that register are fans putting the air up. So it's pushing the hot air up.
So
And
you
interestingly,
have a blow dryer running all the time in the winter.
exactly, cold and hot. So it's cool in the summer and hot in the winter.
When did this all come to you and your husband as a plan?
Well, it was September 2019. Me and my husband took our Jayco trailer and we went on the road. So I'm a virtual assistant. And so literally I was virtually on the road and did my work. And we were starting in Ontario, went to the east coast of Canada and down through Maine into New York and all the way down towards Texas. And we were in Texas in December 2019. And we didn't want to go back immediately because we're like, reason why we went down here is to get away from the snow. We didn't want to get back home. So we were hanging out actually in a town. It's funny. The town was called Burney, Texas, but it was spelled differently than my last name. And when they saw my last name, they said Burney. And I'm like, "No, So that was quite funny. But while we were down, they were like, okay, do we really want to go back to Hamilton? That's where I was, Hamilton, Ontario, to the, I call it the eat, sleep, rinse, and repeat, because it would be the grind every day, the same old thing. We were in the concrete jungle and we had enjoyed our life on the road. We were doing off grid in our trailer. Our trailer had 2 solar panels. So we would be doing that, what they call dry camping or off gridding, you know, and we really enjoyed it. So it was kind of like our mini test of how's it going to work if we did this. So he's like, yeah, I think, he always wanted to be off grid because he actually had his RV when he lived in Vancouver, British Columbia, and he drove across Canada with it, and it had solar. And so he was kind of off grid in his trailer. So he had already done it. And then when I met him, I learned more about the off grid life. So while we were in Texas, his job while I was working was to find us a place. So in Canada, we have from British Columbia to Newfoundland. We have a very large place. And we didn't, no offense to the States, but we wanted to stay in Canada because we have our healthcare system. And it makes it easier for family to visit too. So we looked at British Columbia, and the old Canadian adage out here is BC means bring cash because it's very expensive to live there. So that wasn't going to work. And then we looked in Ontario, our own province, and for us, finding someplace would have been 8 hours north, but 8 hours north meant you're also in bug country. And it would be lucky if you could get to see your family without going through the traffic of the greater Toronto area. So then we looked at the East Coast and we thought, well, New Brunswick is great because it's still on the main one. If we went to Newfoundland, where my mom is from, we were like, well, that would be great. However, you still have to take a boat or a plane to get there. So that sort of impedes family coming to visit. So we looked in New Brunswick and he saw this piece of land. It was this, nobody had been here for, I don't know, like a year or two. And it was an old farmhouse, 50 acres. It had some buildings on it. And we looked on the Google Maps and we're like, oh yeah, this is good. It's near a highway. Oh, and there's some towns nearby. We're like, okay. And we saw the pictures. So we put an offer in and we bought it sight unseen. And it was interesting that while we were doing this, we were still in Texas. We actually did all of the paperwork via email or UPS. We actually signed them at a UPS and had someone, witness it and sent it back. And while we were hiking at the highest peak in Texas, we get a call up at the mountain when we reached the top, and it was the lawyer saying, "Oh, I just wanted to let you know you got your place." We're like, "Oh, cool, thank you." So that was kind of exciting. So yes, we bought sight unseen, 50 acres here with the house for $40,000.
Wow. Canadian or US?
Canadian. So that would be
That's
much
less.
less. Oh yeah, that would be much less than US dollars.
Wow.
Yeah.
That
So
was in 2019.
yes, we bought it. So it was official January 15, 2020.
Oh wow, that's
And
only 4 years ago. Still
and
amazing,
and
an amazing price.
well, even then, I mean, the thing is, it was kind of fate. We bought it. We came back to Canada. We came back from Texas to our province in Ontario. It was February 17th. 2 weeks later, COVID started.
Right.
And I had actually rented our house out as an Airbnb while we were traveling because a lot of people don't realize when your home is empty past a month, your house insurance is invalid because say there's a water leakage, they don't know. But when you have somebody there constantly, your home insurance is still valid. So I thought, Okay, I'll get a property management company to manage it while I'm gone, and I will get passive income while we're out. And where my house was, we were a 5-minute walk to a cancer hospital. So it was always busy because there was always people who needed to go to the hospital. And there's a place literally they don't have to worry about parking. They
Right.
can walk to the hospital, see their children or their family members. So it was quite nice. But we couldn't go back to our house because we had a family there till the end of May. So when we came back, we had to stay with my mom for what it was March, April, and May. So we had to live with my mom till then. And then as soon as those people left, we packed up our house in a U-Haul truck. My husband had been into moving before, so he's very good at putting boxes together. And in 24 hours, we had our whole house packed and we were on the road. And we actually made sure we had everything that we needed while we were going to be in New Brunswick because it was at the beginning of COVID and we were at that quarantine period. But I was like, great, I'm quarantined on 50 acres. We can do lots of work. So we bought our lawnmower, we bought all the equipment we needed ahead of time. And when we came here, we were able to start doing stuff already. And we had a local neighbor, he brought us groceries because we weren't supposed to go out because we were quarantined. So that's how we also got involved with the neighbors too. So yeah, and we've been here now. It will be 2020. It'll be 4 years, I guess, in June.
So when you first moved in, sight unseen, you walk on the property, were you like, oh, oh, or you like, oh, what was it like? I mean, I can only imagine.
I had the second one. So, we came in and we're looking at the house and it was like, oh, this is nice. Oh, wow, there's so much space, and then I have this really nice wooden staircase. I was like, oh my God, this is cool in the rooms. But the house didn't have power. Or did it? No. I think we got rid of, no, it wasn't powered because as soon as we came in, we told the local hydro company. So that would be New Brunswick Hydro or Power. And they came and we just told them we're going to renovate the house because we wanted the actual power disconnected from the house. And doing so, they have no reason to come onto our property. So while we disconnected, we didn't stay in the house when we first moved. We actually stayed in our travel trailer that was parked beside the house because we didn't have everything set up, but we had it in our trailer. So we would come into the house and do things. First week, I think maybe we got to use the toilets. Later on, we got in more. When we got the solar hooked up, then we were able to come in and there were a few light bulb moments literally because we have in our living or dining room we have this chandelier that's literally it must be over 100 years old, and you couldn't see anywhere on the wall where's the light switch. There was no light switch and we're like, where is it? So I looked up at it and I had literally a light bulb moment. I went up and I'm like, oh, look, there's a tab. And you actually click the tab, the light comes on. For each of the three lights, they had separate ones. And I was like, wow, this is cool. So now we could stay in here later at night because we now had light. So slowly we actually moved from the trailer into the house. And then we lived full time in the house. And then the trailer we now actually rent for people to use on our campground because we took I want to say about 30 acres of our property and we've built an off-grid campground called Off-Grid Adventure, which is back to nature camping. So people can also experience living off-grid. But there is a washroom up there. There is no power. There is water. We actually collect rainwater. So there's fresh rainwater for people to use in the washroom cabin and if they need to fill up their jugs.
There's quite a lot of planning. I mean, I can only imagine, you move in and you're like, oh, this, well, you've been doing it in the trailer in Texas, but now you're home, and there's probably a lot of long-term planning where, I mean, I guess we don't necessarily think about these types of things. I mean, were there any oops, uh-oh, ruh-roh type
Oh,
of,
oh, yeah. I mean, there'll be probably so our first thing, and it's kind of you won't think about this when you're just moving into a house, but when you move in, um, either off grid or a camp, you want to. The first thing is, oh, I got to get ready for the winter. Winter is a big thing, and so our first year when we moved here, it was okay. We got to get the house ready for the winter. That meant we replaced all the windows on the first and the second floor of the house because we knew the windows were, you could hear so much and you can hear the wind coming through them. We're like, okay, no, we got to fix that. So we installed all new windows. Then we actually didn't throw away windows. We actually used the windows and added a green room to the front of the house. So we did the good old Tetris. You remember Tetris where you try to figure things out? So that was my husband. He's very good at that.
God,
So we,
those men, sometimes they're so handy. I mean, it
yeah.
sounds terrible. There, I miss my husband all the time. He's passed on, and I
Oh,
always say, you'd fix this in a hot second, honey. But I'm having a problem here. Go ahead.
oh, and then that's the thing. My husband's great at the fixing part, but at the cleaning up part, not so much. But this is teamwork, and that's what it is. And we've learned that what works best for us is okay. I'm a visual person. He can say, oh, it's going to be half an inch here, an inch, an eight. I'm like, no, you got to. I have to see it. Let's go, and I want to see it. So then I understand it. But when he's finished doing everything, then I'm like, okay, leave. I'm going to clean up because I'm great at the cleanup part and setting it up and making it look pretty, so to speak. So, uh, yeah, the first year was the windows, and then we put siding on the house. So I helped him with all of this too. So I learned some stuff, but I also helping your husband and doing renos together. You have to learn. Someone has to be the leader and someone has to be the follower. And so I assist him, and I would know, okay, this is what he's going to need next, so I'll make sure he has the hammer next, or the saw, or whichever, and knowing what needs to be done, I can do that part and at least have all of the resources out. So that way I've learned not to direct him while he's doing the work, and because nobody needs somebody coming over your shoulder going, you're doing it wrong,
Yeah,
or it could have been done this way.
we used to have when I was growing up, we used to call our neighbor the pointer because she'd go outside and she'd go. You wouldn't be able to hear her, but you could look outside and you could see her doing this, and she'd be talking to her husband saying, "Fix this, do that, handle this." So yeah, so it's interesting. Yeah, you can't be
Yeah.
doing that. I mean, they don't mind to some extent, but they certainly don't need to be micromanaged.
Honestly, I wouldn't like that. In my business, I wouldn't like me. I'm busy typing, doing something. Have someone over my shoulder like, "Yeah, I made a mistake. Oh, there's that could have been capitalized. Or why'd you bold it?" Like, I don't know. I don't need that.
Yeah,
So do unto others as you do
really.
unto yourself. Literally.
Do you have the 20? Wait, you said you gave 30 away, so that means you had 40. So I'm doing math here. So that means you have 10 acres.
No, no, we didn't give it away.
No,
It's
I don't
still
mean that,
part
but
of.
you set it up for off grid camping. So you said it was. Did you say 60 acres or 40? 60.
Well, we technically started with 50.
Okay, 50.
And then we actually added an extra 10.
Oh,
This was quite funny. We were like, we need to get to the end where the highway is. We wanted all of this piece. And there was 10 acres that belonged to an older man across the street because at the time, the government had um, split people's land to put a highway through, and the older gentleman didn't realize he owned the two. So we actually went online, found out how much his the land was assessed for, and we gave him the money, and he's like, sure. So we got an extra 10 acres for $2,500.
Wow. Wow.
So
So
now we have 60 acres here.
60 and 30 of it you allocated to the
About
off-grid
30.
camping. But
Yeah.
now you've got 30 acres of your own farming. What's going on?
Well, oh, my husband always has a project every year. So this year, or last year, part of this year, is we've built a horse park, and it's an off-grid horse park. So on the other side of my house, there's actually two Quonsets. Those buildings that are round that have a vinyl hardcover. So we have two. We have one that's 100 by 200 and one by 60 by 80 feet. And so one is an indoor arena for horses to do horse riding. And the other one, the 100 by 200, is it's a stable. And we've built 10 stalls. So right now we have 4 horses. 2 are ours and 2 are our friends. And we're now setting up our horse park for people to board their horses or people to come ride their horses in our indoor arena, on our trails. We are actually we're the only campground in New Brunswick where you can actually bring your horse camping. So people that have horses, a lot of times they want to go ride on trails, but you have to go during the day. And then at the end, you're like, okay, I got to now pack my horses and take them home. At our place, you can actually go riding, and then we have stalls, so the horses relax in a stall and the humans relax in a campground. We actually had someone come from Florida this past weekend. A couple, they're from Florida, and they brought their 2 horses, and they're moving here from Florida to the Maritimes, and they stayed at our place for 2 days, and now they've moved on to Nova Scotia, but they will be coming back. So yeah, it's a great part. So the other 330 acres, well, from my washroom, I can look out and I can see my horses in the pasture and these big Quonsets there. So that's now being built and being finished. So after that, I think my husband said after that, that's it. No more projects.
Really? Really? Really?
I don't know. When we moved here, he kind of retired because we were able to, with the money, because we bought this low, we sold my house high, so we had that extra income and we paid off everything, so we were financially free under the age of 50. And my husband didn't really need to have a job. He was doing work at the campground. And now, I don't know. He says he doesn't want to work, but he's always finding something. It's hard when you're always a builder to just sit and not do anything.
If he wants to come to my house, I have a few projects for him.
Sure, I'll send him down. Only in the summer, though. The winter, he needs to be up here.
It must be an interesting life. I'm just wondering if there are certain things that have happened that remind you how different you guys live than everyone else.
Yes. When there's power outages,
you don't care. You're like, oh, well, that's too bad.
No. And the funny part is, so we have my mom, she used to live in Ontario, and she's in her 70s, and we were able to get her house here. So she's literally a 10-minute walk from my house. Now she's on grid, we're off grid. So when the power went off during the winter time, she'd call us and go, oh, did your power go off? I'm like, no, we're sitting here watching Amazon Prime, eating popcorn. We're okay. She's like, can you start my generator? So we're like, okay. So yes, in that regard, it is interesting where people's power go off fine, but also too, our lifestyle is different that I just can't vacuum at night,
Oh, that's too bad.
No, I just can't take a shower first thing in the morning when it's dark because, if the hot water could be a little warm, but I like it really hot. So, there's certain things you kind of, you get used to, but the way I see it is I'm living with Mother Nature because me and Mother Nature work together. Because I look out there and I'm like, oh, it's a good sunny day. I could do my laundry, put it outside. I can use the vacuum cleaner daytime. I figure out, okay, there are tasks that I need to do now because I got full power. The other tasks, well, I can do those in the night, like my computer work. I can do that at night because I don't need the sun for that. It doesn't take as much energy. But the things that take energy, okay, I'm going to do that now because of that. So my work hours are very sporadic sometimes. Work for 2 hours and then I'm off for two. And then I'll work for two and then I might work later in the night. But it all balances out because I'm getting things done, but just at a different time.
Mm-hmm. Do your clients know that you're off grid?
Hmm.
Okay, so they don't
They know
expect you
that.
to jump necessarily.
Oh no, and the thing is, I look, because my work. So it's kind of interesting. I'm a virtual assistant working online, but in an off-grid home, and they all know that, and it also helps them an hour ahead of most of my clients that are in the Eastern time zone. So I look and I'll see if, something needs to be done. And my first question is, well, when do you need it by? And if it's not something urgent, well, I'll get it done at night or first thing in the morning. Because if I start work at 8 a.m., that's 7 a.m. your time in Eastern. You're getting it there just before you wake up. So it works out okay that way.
Yeah, I think we forget that there's a bit of Canada that shifts over even more than the East Coast. So you're an hour before us.
There's two time zones past Eastern. There's Atlantic and then there's Newfoundland. Newfoundland is at 30 minutes past us. So it'll be an hour and 30 minutes for
30
Eastern.
minutes. That always confuses me. I think India has that 30-minute also.
Oh,
So
really?
so you can't really say at the top of the hour because it doesn't make any sense to anybody. It's like at the top of what hour? Your hour or my hour? Because we're 30 minutes plus. Yeah, it gets a little confusing. People don't everybody thinks everything's time differences are all at the hour, but they're not.
Mm-mm.
Life has a few surprises. It's good that way. It keeps you guessing.
Right.
So when did you become this virtual assistant? And that's a whole other world of interest.
Well, the virtual assistant, interestingly, I have now completed 20 years of being a virtual assistant. So before all of the Zoom and COVID, I was actually considered a virtual assistant in 2004. Now, at the time, I didn't know about virtual assistants till there was a thing called the Learning Annex. Way back then, they had these little um, uh, info sessions. And I went to one and they said, oh, instead of being an assistant where you're at a desk, you could be at home doing the work and then you can work for something and do something else. I'm like, oh, that's great. Because I used to work someplace and I was an executive assistant. I get done my work at 3:30. I can't leave. I have to stay till 4:30. So now I'm surfing the web, waiting for work, asking, I have to stay. And it's so funny at the workplace. If you leave 5 minutes early, everybody talks. But if you leave 5 minutes late, no, nobody worries. Yeah.
That's right.
So,
Yeah, well, that's
so
that's one of the things about office politics that drives everyone crazy.
exactly. So I found out about that, and then there was a lady at the time. She was giving a teleconference call, so it wasn't virtual. Well, it was kind of, but it was through the phone, and it was how to be a virtual assistant. And she lived in Vancouver, BC. And interestingly, at the time, I it was going to cost $900, and I didn't have the money. But when I was working where I was working, I I listened to this radio show that had Beat the Bank. And the night before, I did the manifestation. I didn't really know about manifestation at the time, but I actually said, okay, God, I need $900. Please figure a way for me to do that. So when I heard about the Beat the Bank contest, I phoned up, I got through, and I played the game. And after the way the game works is a number would come up and you would say, okay, it would say 300, and you would say go on or continue or stay. And if you went on and you heard the bell of the alarm, you would lose your money. But if you didn't, you can keep going on. So I actually, from that, I won $900 because one of the numbers was 900. And when I heard 900, I was like, okay, that's all I need. I didn't get greedy. That was the thing. People get greedy. And I was like, nope, I just only need $900. So I said, stop. And then it went to, I think the next one was like 1325, and then the bell. So I won my money, and I was able then to take the class, and she explained things. And what I did is I was working someplace and I gave them 2 weeks notice. So on a Friday was my last day of work. And on the Monday, I became self-employed because I had actually had somebody that I was doing Girl Friday work on a Sunday, and I put them to a Monday. And then he referred me some more business. So I was able, right from the beginning, my business was all through referrals. And I was very fortunate. I also started with BNI, which is Business Network International. I think it was in 2004 I started. I was with them for 6 years. And that's how my business flourished too, because I was able to go to all the networking groups, and I was the only virtual assistant. So I was able to go to lots of other networking BNI groups in the area because I could visit, and I was the only virtual assistant. So there was no competition. So that worked. And then I moved on, and yeah. And the rest is history. Like 20 years later, I'm still doing it.
So that's so. And you still do you have long-term clients, or you do? Oh well, you do
I
good
have,
work and they keep you. They're very
oh
happy.
yeah, I have, and I was actually, it was so funny. I have one client. He's a great gentleman. But he's an older gentleman. And I used to do work at his house. So he lived nearby where I lived in Burlington. So I would come to his house and, doing a PowerPoint, sometimes you need to talk it over or, explain it. And so he would stand and say the things, and I would put it in and make it look visually appealing. So when I went on my road trip, I actually gave everybody a year's notice, and I trained him how to actually connect with me virtually while I was on the road. And he was very scared, but we tried it out and he got better at it. And then while I was on the road, he was really good, and we would continue. And then when I came back, then COVID happened. So I wasn't supposed to, even though we were still nearby, it was virtual. And then when I moved to New Brunswick, it was a very simple transition. So for a lot of my clients, I've actually transitioned them for a virtual connection way before I even knew that this pandemic was going to happen.
Which is, I did also had the same thing. I was virtual since 2006. So the pandemic hit, I'd already been there for a number of years. So
Right.
I had no transition. I didn't have any stress. I didn't even lose any clients.
Wonderful.
Yeah. So, matter of fact, I made a few. So, are you still do you still pick up clients, or are you just occasionally pick up clients?
And what I did is I transitioned. So I did the whole pivot. So during when COVID happened, before then I was a computer instructor, and I was doing a lot of computer instructions face to face. And during when I was on the road, we started doing virtual computer instruction. But then when COVID happened, a lot of companies cut off their training. So I added, instead of doing computer instruction, I became a virtual producer. So that allowed me, when people were having these Zoom meetings, they're like, well, how do I put them in a breakout room? How do I turn off this? Or they're having problems. So what a virtual producer does, we're the extra set of hands, putting people in breakout rooms, making sure your videos come on good. Oh, somebody's coughing. We got to turn off their mic while you're presenting. So as a virtual producer, I make the facilitators look good and everything runs seamlessly. And I really now enjoy the virtual production side because it's a twofold. I get to help them make it look really seamless, and I learn something at the same time. Because, a lot of times I'm producing stuff for things I don't know what they are. Like I've had ones on with CSA, Canadian Safety Standards. It was about electrical, or it's a coaching session and they're talking about DISC or emotional intelligence. So all of these interesting things, I'm like, I didn't know that. So I learn as well as I'm also helping the facilitator.
That's one of the interesting things with being able to work with a bunch of different clients, and because I've done that over the term of my career, and you do learn, you definitely learn, and it's
Oh, yeah.
a while. Every business is different. Even the same business is different between, like if you work for two electricians, doesn't mean the business is the same. I mean, generally speaking, obviously, there are some things that are similar, but
Yeah,
the people are going to run it differently. So it's like a challenge, but it's not a stressful challenge. It's an exciting challenge where you're like, oh well, I'm
exactly.
gonna learn all about their business, and this will be cool. And there have been some instances when I've learned about companies and businesses, and I take away quite a lot. I mean, quite a lot. Like learning about insurance, you'd think, "Oh God, insurance! Why not be an accountant?" Even still, you learn why things are the way they are, or terms like a producer, a policyholder. I mean, you learn all these terms, which like, I never even it never even occurred to me that there are these types of terms in this type of a business. There are, and
Mhm.
it's always good to learn, right? Learning is
Oh,
a good thing.
definitely. Definitely. I have a client, I have someone who's he's an accountant, but he's a valuator. He evaluates businesses so that they can sell. And so we do all these reports and schedules. And then I have another accountant, actually, just recently we did in Canada, it was our tax season. So it was all the personal taxes. So I was doing the admin work, sending people the DocuSigns and sending them their finals and their, so doing all of that, I was like, oh wow, okay, there's quite a bit involved in all of this, so it's interesting.
Yeah, it is
It's always nice. I find it's really cool being in the back end of doing things. I've done that too. I volunteered for festivals. Like I was, when I lived in Toronto, I volunteered for the Toronto International Film Festival for a few years. And it was really cool seeing the back end of all the things that have to go on and what happens in the green room and how you get things set up before an event comes on. So I enjoy that.
um, it takes a different skill set to be able to get challenged by that, figure out the problems, shift, pivot, and um, do it over and over again. It's a different skill set. Some people enjoy routines, while
Hmm.
you enjoy creating processes.
Yeah, and getting back to even the off grid, we had problems here. Like we'd have a problem. Okay, we got to find a solution. Like I've never been the type where I'd whine about something and then not have a solution. I always say, if you're going to whine about it and then give a solution. Like, I don't want to know, oh, I can't do this, I can't do this, I can't. Okay, how are we going to solve it? Let's just get to that. The energy you spend whining and complaining, oh, I wish they didn't do it this way. You could have had it done. you'd have that solved.
Yeah.
Just I'm all about thinking outside the box and trying to find a solution that is simple, is effective, cost effective.
It's I say often, it's a choice. You could be happy and miserable. I mean, really, why would you want to be miserable?
Oh,
I
exactly.
mean, sometimes you want sympathy, and you say to yourself, okay, you know what? I'd like to be miserable. I'd like to complain, and I'd like to have somebody say, "Oh, poor baby," and then can we just like move on? Because I don't want to be poor baby.
Yeah.
I don't want somebody to look at me and go all the time. Unless they're going to throw money, in which case, if it works, I'll have them do that. Even still, that would get old.
Yeah, we don't need a pity party all the time.
No, I really,
Yeah.
I think there was a point in my life where I did want the pity party, but I think I learned it's like, you know what, this is a double-edged sword, and once you start this pity party, it starts, it works well in the beginning, and then it starts to work against you. It's like, oh no, don't give it to her because she's just going to moan and groan, right? Oh, so how interesting. So, are there things in your life that other people, well, just doing stuff? Are there things in your life that other people, I mean, they take for granted in their lives, and you're just like, oh no, we don't do that. We don't do that. Yeah, I haven't done that in years. That just doesn't happen.
Microwave.
Yeah, right.
We don't have a microwave. People don't realize that that consumes so much energy.
I know.
And so I do things the other way. So it's like, okay, I have to heat up my tea.
Right.
Okay. Well, I just put it in a pot and I heat it up.
Right.
I've even put it in a frying pan because my pots were dirty. So I put it in a frying pan, put a cover on the frying pan, and then I heat it up and I'm like, okay, just pour it back in.
Yeah. Yeah. No, it's funny because um my microwave broke, but even before that, I never used the microwave. My husband did. So I'd use it for him, but it broke about 5 years ago. And I haven't replaced it. I have no need
Yeah.
for it. And when, let's say you have leftovers and you want them reheated, and, you take a double boil, you put water in the bottom. Sometimes you put it in a strainer, one that has holes so the water, goes up. Sometimes, no, you don't. I mean, really, these things were done before there were microwaves.
Oh yeah.
You
Yeah.
can make popcorn
I
without a
oh,
microwave.
well, microwave popcorn? No, 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 no. I do it in a pot
Right.
on the stove with oil or butter. And the nice thing is with our propane stove, it's so hot, you don't have to shake it.
Okay.
And I have a clear cover so I can
See
see
it.
exactly what's going on. I'm like, okay, yeah, I got popcorn. Definitely. Toaster. So we use a camping toaster on the propane stove, which is great because now I can do both sides evenly, have it nicely brown. No, I mean, if I have a dark spot, I have a dark spot, but I like mine dark brown to begin with. So, yeah, the toaster works well. Um, I guess sometimes I would miss like a hair dryer. Like the other night, it was now what I did, and we didn't have the wood stove going, but there was enough energy outside. We had a little space heater, one of those portable heaters you may put under for your feet. So I put it on top of the table and I was like, okay, dry my hair. So, I mean, I find other ways.
Mhm.
Um, we also are conscious of our water usage. So we do not flush the toilet all the time.
Mm.
And uh, we've now actually, if you've ever been to Greece, have you ever been to Greece?
Mm-mm. Mm-mm.
So in Greece, their septic system is quite antique, right? It's very old, the sewer system.
It's
So
the
there,
Roman era.
Roman era.
Roman era
But
latrine.
when I was in Greece in 2017, and the first thing that I noticed that was different is all the toilets had on the back don't put toilet paper in the toilets because toilet paper actually clogs the system. So they would have a garbage can on the side. So when you're finished, you would put now for number ones, not a problem. Number twos, I think you need to flush it. So what we've done, because we were having a little issue with ours, is we now have a toilet, a basket beside for the toilet paper. And what I do is I'll actually say, oh, this is great starter paper. So I'll actually use it in the wood stove and I'll start a fire. And I actually, what I do is I fill up an old tissue box with all of the tissues, or I've had my cold recently. So all the tissues from my cold, well, they're all dried up afterwards. So I put them in a tissue box, put this in the wood stove as my starter, and then put all my starter wood on top. So I'm putting less in the garbage now because all those tissues, any paper towels, I collect those and like a squirrel, I'm collecting all of this paper and
You
it's
learn to,
downstairs beside the
you
wood
learn these
stove.
things. You learn these things.
Well, I look at stuff and I'm like, okay, where's this going to go in the garbage? Like after, what happens to this? And I'm really conscious about my garbage. Like at the end, because I live off grid, I also I don't want to leave a bad carbon footprint. I
Mm-hmm.
don't want to waste a lot. So I'm careful about my garbage.
There's a
I
lot of
try to be,
packaging, a lot of wasteful packaging when you
oh
go to the
gosh,
store.
no, we now we used to, when we were on our road trip, we would have a granola bar with our lunch. I actually now make my own
We're not
granola bar.
right.
Yeah. I just make it in a pot. It's in a glass container. I put it in the fridge when it's ready, cut it in squares, put it in a container. When we ran out, well, I make more. It's really easy and it's healthy because it's only 5 ingredients. So I know what's going into it.
Right.
So same thing with our food. I make all of our food, so we're eating healthy. We don't eat a lot of meat. Um, I use a lot of, when I go to the grocery store, I'll get all of the vegetables that are 50% off. And I'll use that. I'll use frozen vegetables. I try, I mean, people say, oh, you're off grid. Aren't you making your own vegetable garden and doing that? Well, I run two businesses. I can't do everything at the same time. But what I can do is support the local farmers. So I actually support the local farmers and we barter sometimes. They'll give me eggs, I'll give them something. You know, there's ways of doing it. I've started a buy nothing group here, which is, if you have something that you want to get rid of, you put it on there, someone will take it from you, or if you're looking for something, you can barter. So I started that here. There's so many things that people can do. Uh, it's just looking at it and not thinking, oh, I'm just going to throw this away. Oh no, what's going to happen to this?
Right.
There's going to be so much.
Right. I make my own dog kibble.
Awesome.
And now I know why it's so expensive. I mean, when I make it, it lasts about 5 days.
Right.
And it doesn't take a lot of ingredients, but um, it just takes, I can make it in an evening, but it's the entire evening. And I don't have to be in the kitchen the whole time. It's like 40 minutes in the oven, take it out, crunch it up, put it back in the oven, flip it over, take it out. Because, it's kibble. You don't want it to be soggy. But, yeah, I started doing that a little while ago. I prefer making the dog food than buying it.
Yeah.
But it becomes something that you do, and this is one of the things that other people may not understand, because they'll say, oh, let's go shopping, and I'll be like, no, I've got to stay in tonight, I have to make kibble for the dogs. Why don't you just buy it, then we can go shopping? I don't need anything right now. Why, you just, your lifestyle starts to shift a little bit, and um, it. I don't want to say it becomes less social. It's just it's no longer social for the sake of social. It becomes, if you want to come over my house for dinner, we could do that. But if you just don't know what to do with yourself and you want to go waste it by, go into a movie or something, can't we just like not do that? And you can come over and we can play cards.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah,
And that's how I
definitely.
think. It's annoying to some people. Those aren't my friends. The ones who come over and play cards are.
Well, and that's the thing. You find out who are your friends, and I've learned too. You in life, life is like an onion. Onion have many layers, and so I have many different layers. Like I'll have my close friends, that are only a handful. They're in the core, and then I have the other layer of my business friends, and then there's my family, and sometimes they never interchange, and that's okay. You have different people for different purposes. Like I'm going to be playing trivia tonight. And I love playing trivia, but it was hard trying to find people to find a group of six. Well, I found a group of six, including myself, and we're going to play trivia for the Kiwanis. So I like playing that. And knowing that I can find people that enjoy it too, it's nice because we have that commonality. And it's funny enough, the four out of them are also horse people. So, we're also, and that's kind of what we do here too. I like to build an off grid community of like minded people who are looking to have a simple life. And having a simple life means not making it complex and not getting all into everyone's business. Just peaceful, keep it to yourself, but we enjoy each other's space. We respect each other's opinions. Um, you agree to disagree and you still enjoy each other.
Right.
And that's being an adult, right?
That's what
So,
happens when there's not all this stress of keeping up with the Joneses, doing stuff just because you just feel like it's that time that I have to be doing this. Or aren't you a manager? No, well, you've been at that job for so long. Why aren't you managing? What? Huh? Why? It's just the simplicity of success does not mean it needs to be. This is stupid. The simplicity of success doesn't mean it needs to be complex. It doesn't need to be drama. And if you're
exactly.
busy making things happen, there's less time for you to make up stuff.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And there's also
Yeah.
less time. I mean, we all have our good days and bad days, but there's less time for you to think about yourself and go, "Oh, I'm ugly. I'm not tall enough. I should be pretty. Oh, look what she's wearing." Or, why won't we let's get a new car? All of those things become what we. You don't even think about them anymore.
No, no.
If it's
You
broken,
wake
you
up,
go fix it. You don't think anything else. Oh, we got to buy a new one. Oh, fix it.
no. Our car, we have an Acura MDX. It's a 2008. And it's still running, and I'll keep it running and when we have to buy a replacement car, I said to my husband, we're buying something that's as old or just a little bit older because I don't want any of that technology. Even though I'm a technology person, I do not want it with all the GPS and all of that stuff because it costs so much money to fix it. I just want a car that gets me from A to B. I remember the cars, like, kids don't remember that cars, you would have to do this to roll down the window.
Right, right.
There's, to move a seat, you just don't push a button. You'd actually have to fix it. I used to drive standard for 30 years. So, the stick shift, you actually move the car. You know, I guess even though in our society we're trying to make life easier, by making life easier, we're also making sometimes us dumber.
Yeah, well, we're
You're
bringing
not
all this
using your
leisure
brain.
time, and that all
Yeah,
that leisure time is to no good purpose.
no,
Because what do we do with all the leisure time? We play social games, we tweet. Excuse me, I'd rather have more work to do. Thank you.
yeah, no, definitely. You know, at our place, like, well, now this is something different that we do at our place too, is because my husband's working during daylight hours, we don't have dinner till sunset. So in the summer, it could be 8:30, 9 o'clock. So I'll have to have something around 5 because I'm still hungry. And he starts work early, but then the winter it's shorter. So we we also change according to that. Now we're very lucky as a couple that we tend to eat breakfast together. We always eat lunch together, and we eat dinner together. And when we eat together, we're not on our phones. We're talking about, okay, what's being done? Who did you talk to? We update each other. So we've been doing that in our uh, 4 years that we've been married. We've always had that. So even though he could be out and about, we still are getting together at lunch and talking. So now there are times where I might have a business online meeting and it's at lunchtime. Well, he's kind enough. He actually brings my lunch to me and brings it up. So, I mean, there are times that we're not always doing it, but we try very hard. So we're keeping life simple, but also staying connected.
An alternative life, it doesn't necessarily require being off grid, although you've taken it to to a nice place. I mean, I often um, imagine what it would be like to do that, and you know, as like you said, uh, eating later in the summer and eating earlier in the winter because the day starts earlier now and it ends early, and it's almost like it's 7 o'clock, and you'll be like, okay, we'll be going to bed soon because it's dark and it's cold. And what are you going to do? You're going to waste electricity? No.
Well, no, for us in the winter, we'll have the wood stove going, and that keeps going. And what we have around our house everywhere are these, knowing what the temperature is. So we know, oh, it's getting hot or cold. No, in the wintertime, we have the wood stove going. We want to put up the wood stove. Now I'm going to talk in Celsius.
Mm.
Unfortunately, I don't know Fahrenheit.
That's okay.
We try to have it at like 19 or 20 when we go to bed, because then when we go to bed, we're not always putting wood in
Right.
late at night, but it goes down 5 degrees, and we like it cool when we want to go to bed. We don't want it hot. And people don't realize wood heat is different from electric heat. It is actually hotter, because I'm at 19, 20, and I'm like, oh, I gotta put on a t-shirt. But I'm at my parents' house and they're 19, 20, and I'm cold. And they have electric heat or even natural gas heat. It's much
It
different.
is much different. Well, it's dry also because it removes all the moisture locally, but it shifts it. So like if you have an upstairs, you might notice all the moisture on the windows upstairs. You is How big is the stove?
What one? I have a wood stove in the kitchen,
Oh,
and
okay.
I have a wood stove down in the basement. The wood stove in the basement, it can fit a log about that long.
Okay.
And it can get, now where we have it, it's also where our batteries are for the solar, because when you have solar you have to convert that DC to AC. So we actually have built a wall between there. We repurposed actually insulated panels that you use in garage doors, and we've built a room. So you come into the basement and it could be 15 degrees Celsius there. You open the door to the wood room and it's 40 Celsius in there,
Wow.
warm.
Right. Very
And
warm.
it's just, we want all that heat. And we've learned too, I didn't realize that you use different types of wood, white, birch wood and all that. It gives you a good fast heat, but you want for overnight, you want maple or really the hardwoods,
Right.
and that lasts you longer. So we learned to mix the woods. My husband takes care of that, but I learned too. I wasn't a person that knew how to really start a fire. Now he's, I think 2 winters he went away to visit family, so I had to take care of everything for a week on my own, and I was able to start a fire, got the wood going. I felt very, what's the word, proud that I could do all of this.
Pioneer woman.
Well, I always said it's Little House on the Prairie with internet.
There you go. That's exactly what you are.
Yeah.
Exactly what you are.
So, yeah, wintertime we do things differently. We actually put, what do you call it? We put blankets on all our windows, even though our windows are double pane, but we put more because you insulate it. Because we didn't insulate the walls, we're not. I mean, this is a 100-year-old home. We're not going to tear down the walls and put insulation. We put extra siding on the outside, but we do stuff in the winter to help with that. We did this year. We put a blanket in the hallway to cover the hallway, so that we're only heating one area, and then we don't have to worry about it trying to heat the hallway. The hallway doesn't need heating.
Right.
So it's always nice. You're like, okay, I'm coming through the door.
We had the same thing. We had we put up a sheet
Yeah.
so that we didn't have to worry about the downstairs. Who
Yeah.
cares? Nobody's going downstairs. And we
Yeah.
used the wood stove to heat the whole house. And at night, it was hot. I mean, people would come over to our house and we would be in shorts and t-shirts, like you said, because it was
Yeah.
warm. And
Yeah.
you can't really regulate that.
No.
It's like it goes from being, oh, it's a little chilly. Okay, put the wood stove on. Let's get the wood stove going. To, oh my God.
Yeah, then
And you
you're
get
like,
used
okay,
to
I
it.
have to put a stick in every hour or two just to like maintain it.
Right.
Yeah. Actually, so for the people that might be listening, even for yourself, on Saturday, May 25th, we're having our off-grid expo. And this year, for people who are far away like yourself, I am going to do a live Zoom and give a house tour to everybody via Zoom. So then and I'll also go through and show the horse area, the campground. So I'm going to take this live virtually because I'm a virtual producer. I should be able to do this.
Yeah, very nice.
So I have the free tickets on Eventbrite. I'll send you the link. And if you and other people are interested, I think at 1 p.m. Atlantic time is when I'm going to be doing the tour of the house on Saturday, May 25th. Plus, we have
I'll make
vendors.
sure that I put it in the link and then I advertise it.
Yeah.
Very good. How can people connect with you? What's the easiest way for people to connect?
And we have our website for if you're interested in the off-grid living, it's offgridadventure.ca. And then my business is girlfry at girlfry.com. My business name is Virtual Girl Friday.
Very good. So I'll make sure to list that as well in the credits so that people could see that. It's been fascinating. I almost want to get in my car and come and visit you with my 3 dogs.
Yeah, please. People are welcome. I mean, our campground's open right now. We actually have campers coming tonight. They're going to camp. And we had horse campers just this week. So we're having a variety of stuff. We're actually having a school group come in June for their end of year field trip. We're going to do activities with them. So it'll be really fun. I look forward to this summer.
Very exciting. I'm so glad that you came to talk with us and to tell us a little bit about your off-grid venture.
Thank you. Thank you, Joy, for inviting me.
You bet. And that's a wrap.